Federal agents in unmarked vans are targeting women at domestic violence hearings, and it's just the beginning of a calculated two-phase operation that could bring military forces to American streets. What you're about to learn reveals a strategy so deliberate that government officials are calling it a manufactured crisis designed to justify unprecedented federal intervention. This isn't speculation, it's happening right now, and the evidence is documented. If stories like this matter to you and you want to stay informed about what's really happening in our country, I'd be honored if you'd subscribe and become part of our community that values truth over headlines. The groundwork for this operation was laid during the massive No Kings demonstrations that swept through Chicago last June. Aerial footage captured the incredible scale of these gatherings, thousands upon thousands of people filling the streets in what authorities confirm were completely peaceful protests. But rather than seeing this as an example of Americans exercising their constitutional rights, federal planners apparently saw something else entirely, an opportunity to test a new enforcement strategy. According to Illinois Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, what's unfolding follows a precise two-phase blueprint. Phase 1 involves flooding target areas with immigration and customs enforcement agents in what officials call an ICE surge. But this isn't traditional immigration enforcement. Agents are being deliberately positioned at locations guaranteed to create maximum community disruption and fear. The most disturbing aspect of this surge involves targeting domestic violence courts, where the most vulnerable women seek legal protection. CBS News Chicago documented a shocking incident at the courthouse located at 555 West Harrison, which opens at 8:30 each weekday. A woman scheduled to appear at 9 a.m. for her domestic violence case never made it inside because ICE agents arrested her on the sidewalk just 15 minutes before her hearing. Court documents revealed she faced two misdemeanor counts of domestic battery. But here's the twist. Those charges were dropped the same day she was taken into federal custody. What makes this situation even more chilling is how it's affecting other survivors. Victim advocate Tessa Kuipers, who works directly at the courthouse, witnessed the arrest and explained how federal agents responded when questioned. An agent simply stated they were going to speak to her about her immigration status before putting the woman in handcuffs. Kuipers warns this approach is making survivors unsafer because survivors now have hesitancy about seeking protections, about connecting with their advocate, and about criminal charges that might be a tool for safety for them. How do you think this impacts a woman who's already terrified of her abuser and now has to fear federal agents at the courthouse too? Drop your thoughts below because this situation affects entire communities, not just individual cases. The ripple effects are already visible throughout Chicago's court system. During CBS News investigations, court personnel were calling out names of defendants and plaintiffs who simply weren't there. People were too frightened to appear for their scheduled hearings. The CEO of the network advocating against domestic violence has responded by encouraging virtual hearings, stating these actions will undermine survivors' trust in our legal system to be a resource for them and will discourage survivors from coming forward if they fear immigration will be at their next court hearing and take their loved ones. This brings us to phase 2 of the strategy, which Lieutenant Governor Stratton describes as straight from an authoritarian's playbook. The plan relies on community reactions to these aggressive enforcement tactics. When people inevitably respond to seeing masked agents without any identifying markings on their uniforms, grabbing individuals off the streets and stuffing them into unmarked vans, those reactions become the justification for escalation. Stratton, who lives on Chicago's South Side and has been personally affected by gun violence along with her family, explains how this manufactured crisis works. Federal authorities expect that when people do react, when they raise their voices, when they resist and protest, then the Trump administration is going to claim, well, now, we have to come in and restore order by federalizing the National Guard and establishing a military presence on American soil. The strategy has already been tested in Los Angeles, where a situation contained to just a few city blocks downtown was used as justification for broader federal intervention. Even though the situation was 98% peaceful and limited to the smallest area, it was portrayed as citywide chaos requiring military-style response. The same template is now being applied to Chicago, despite officials stating clearly that no emergency exists in either the city. Or do you see the pattern here? Create the problem, then offer the extreme solution? And what do you think happens to communities when this becomes the new normal? Share your perspective, because these tactics could spread to other cities. Lieutenant Governor Stratton, who has devoted her career to criminal justice reform and addressing systemic root causes of crime, offers a crucial perspective based on her work with directly impacted survivors and community experts. She emphasizes that absolutely no one, not a single person she's spoken with, has said what they want is an armed military roaming the streets of our communities. Instead, people consistently identify what actually makes them feel safer: access to healthcare, including mental health services, ability to put food on the table, good-paying jobs that support families, educational opportunities, and pathways to close the wealth gap and build generational wealth. The timing of this operation becomes even more significant when viewed against recent economic troubles, including alarming jobs reports that show the impact of aggressive tariff policies crushing business relationships with countries like Canada and devastating the tourism industry. Rather than addressing these economic pressures that experts know contribute to rising crime rates, the current administration has slashed $800 million in violence prevention funding for states like Illinois, removing the exact resources communities say they need. If this information is opening your eyes like it did mine, I'd really appreciate your subscription. These important stories often get buried under other news, and your support helps ensure more people learn what's really happening in their country. Illinois officials are urging residents to understand the deliberate nature of what they're witnessing and to resist the temptation to take the bait even when confronted with deeply upsetting scenes. Stratton acknowledges that any decent human being would be heartbroken by what we're seeing and what we expect to see, but stresses that people must express themselves peacefully because any form of violence could really lead to the most vulnerable and the people that we are really trying to protect being harmed. The goal is preventing federal authorities from justifying their authoritarian actions while still exercising First Amendment rights to raise voices in protest. This entire situation represents what Stratton calls failed leadership at every single level, where an administration that promised solutions instead creates chaos and then uses the chaos to threaten states and cities that refuse to bow down. As she prepares her campaign for the United States Senate, Stratton emphasizes that people across Illinois want leaders who will stand up and fight for them and push back against this chaos, rather than those who will just go along to get along. Her message is clear: government should be a partner helping people access affordable housing, healthcare, and economic stability, not a roadblock that normalizes military presence while stripping away resources that actually make communities safer.